It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. Great panel coming up for you. Ben Parr is here, the AI analyst, the technologizer, Harry McCracken from Fast Company, and our friend from Hawaii, aloha to Doc Rock. We're going to talk a lot about AI. The governor of California vetoes a bill that would require safety drivers in automated big rigs. Was that a good idea? Unity blinks and says, never mind. Plus, Apple and Microsoft and Amazon, all with big events, big announcements. We've got the iPhone 15. Should you get a fine woven case? You want a close-up? iFixit has it. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more next on TWiT.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 946, recorded Sunday, September 24th, 2023. AI is number 2. This episode of This Week in Tech is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now ACI Learning. ACI's new solution, Insights, assists in identifying and fixing skill gaps in your IT teams. Visit go.acilearning.com/TWiT. TWiT listeners receive at least 20% off or as much as 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan after completing their form. You'll receive a proper quote based on the size of your team. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, the show we cover the week's tech news. Every week, it's a different show. I kind of like that. Every other show we do, same panel every week. On This Week in Tech, I changed the panel up. Of course, a lot of times it's people we know pretty well. In fact, in this case, 3 of my greatest friends, starting with Doc Rock all the way from the Aloha State. Not Maui, though, Oahu. Hi, Doc Rock.
Good. How you been?
I've been great. I heard you had a good time with my wife. Wait a minute, that came out wrong. You guys were out in Denver at Podcast Movement a couple of months ago.
Man, it was phenomenal. We had a blast, and like your whole crew is just amazing. And right after that, I left. I went to Japan, and in my hotel, this is so hilarious. There is a zojirushi rice restaurant where they basically highlight their like $4,000 rice cookers, and they serve. Like, yo, Leo needs to be here. This is so epic.
Yeah, you know, she was you and her were, because you had told me to get a zojirushi rice cooker, which I got, and that rice from the mainland, that's the sushi rice, right?
Yes.
And it's been very good. By the way, 20-pound bag. We're still working on it. It's not done yet, but we've been very happy with it. And she says you were trading recipes on the rice cooker. She has a hanker. I said, did he tell you about the Kentucky Fried Chicken leftover recipe? She didn't mention that.
Oh, that's the one. That's the one. That you have to try. It is so good.
I have. It is great.
But it's so freaking good. It's the best thing to do with chicken.
Anyway, welcome. It's good to see you, my friend. Doc Rock in the house. Also with us, good friend Harry McCracken, the technologizer, global technology editor at Fast Company. Now on Mastodon Social. Hi, Harry.
Hi, Leo. Good to see you, even if I'm not sitting next to you this time.
You are traveling to the Web Summit soon, yes?
6 weeks from now, I'll be in Lisbon for the 3rd year.
Wow. I love Lisbon.
It's great. It's a great city. It's a great event.
And you just got back from another event? You're back on the road.
Fast Company had its Innovation Festival in New York last week, so I went to that, and there happened to be a Microsoft event in town, so I went to that too.
You went to that? Good.
I went to IFA in Berlin less than a month ago, I think.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm going to get an update on all of that in just a little bit. But first, let's say hi to Ben Parr, old friend Ben Parr, the AI analyst at benparr.com. Hi, Ben.
Oh, hello. Quick notes, Doc. You made me hungry. I really want some rice.
It's good.
Harry, I'm jealous of all the traveling.
Yeah. What? You're a traveling man, Ben. You go all over the place.
I don't get to go to Lisbon this year. I want to go to Lisbon in particular.
Get them to invite you. It might not be too late.
I think I met Ben in Paris some years ago at Le Web. I think is
the week.
The web.
And
Yeah.
Friends, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's been a long time. So before we get into the week's news, how is AI going, Ben? Is it still the next big thing?
I would say it is, but you gotta go through the hype cycles, right?
We're in a hype cycle. I think that's a good point. Yes.
It's for sure you have a hype cycle, but the question that everyone asks is it more like, let's say tokens in crypto where like you just have a big crash, or is it more like the internet or mobile phones where you don't say like, hi, I'm starting an internet company today, but every company is an internet company. I think most investors and most people in the Valley think AI is number 2. And at a certain point, it'll be great when there's not all of the hype around things. But in the interim, there's going to be a bunch of events happening this fall in like the San Francisco area. TED's doing an AI conference next month. There's still a lot of stuff happening.
Boy, it's rare we get a title so early in the show, but I think we're going to call this show AI is number 2. Is that okay with? Here's out of context, it has a very different meaning. Here's the famous Gartner hype cycle, where you have a technology trigger, then you go to the peak of inflated expectations, and then the trough of disillusionment as reality sets in. But then, if you're lucky, I think Bitcoin never got out of the trough of disillusionment. If you're lucky, you get the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. That's number 2. And you expect that where are we now, though, in the AI hype cycle on the Gartner chart?
It is really hard to know. And it could be on the, it's definitely not as high as it was before.
We've passed the peak of inflated expectations, but I think we're still pretty high up, aren't we?
We're probably still pretty high up.
The trough of disillusionment awaits.
I don't know what it'll look like, though. That's the hard part. Like, what does the trough actually look like?
See, I think one of the problems is that at the peak of inflated expectations, you get all the AI bros saying, this stuff is great, but watch out, it's an existential threat to humanity, which it's clearly not, but okay. That's to me, that's absolute hype. That's them saying, don't worry about the fact that black people face recognition is terrible and they get thrown in jail in a higher proportion because of it. Don't overlook the AI hallucinations and all that stuff. It's a threat to humanity. And it's kind of hyping up this potential of it. That to me is at the peak. I think the trough of disillusionment is going to come when people say, oh, it's just a toy. It's just a party trick. It's not doing nothing that, it's just like a 3-year-old could do. And it's so much wrong stuff that it's dopey. I feel like I'm there. I'm in that trough already right now.
But what people don't realize is the AI that we use every single day without even thinking about it. Okay, so I don't know, Leo. I know you got iPhone 15 Pro Max, didn't you?
I sure did. I arrived on Friday in my hand here, right here.
You know what I'm saying? Like me too. And
is that AI though? Really?
Yes.
Yes.
Some of it is.
100%.
Okay.
When you go like when we were back, I think it was like iPhone 10 or whatever when we first got the picture. You take the picture and then like a second later the picture goes boom. Hey, look at me, I'm way cuter than you thought. That's it.
Wait. We used to call that computational photography, and this is my problem. Is that, and this is the same thing happened with blockchain and everything. Is you start talking about computation as if it's artificial intelligence, and it's just more computation.
The machine learning part of it is AI. It has the word learning directly in it.
Yeah.
The Neuralink part of it is AI, because what they do is they take the nodes and they take the information from all the other pictures available to come up with the best picture, right? So from way back to Microsoft Snapdragon, which is super old, you were taking all the other pictures and then coming up with information to make the next picture better. AI.
I remember that. Snapdragon. I remember that.
So, people are talking about chatbots. Chatbot is the least of it. And if you dig into the medical community for just like a half a toe, you don't even need to the whole toe, just the nail in, and you see what they're doing with patient outcomes because of the amount of data that they can run through real quick and come up with better health plan scenarios. That's all AI too.
Oh, come on, wait a minute. Because I remember IBM said Watson's going to be the best diagnostician ever, and it was a flop, and they had to stop doing it.
Yeah, but
IBM totally oversold it, and they had ads on TV about it.
Yeah,
5 or 6 years ago, way before it was.
So maybe it's better. It's better now. Is that way?
100%.
It's for sure better now. Like, okay. I do this when I do these presentations, and I always like show where generative AI, which is all the chatbots, the ChatGPTs, and it's a very tiny portion of that AI universe because it's within neural networks, which is within deep learning, which is within machine learning. It is a big umbrella term, but I think one thing we keep forgetting is there are some really cool applications like to change the world. I was speaking at Climate Week this week in New York or last week. And there's these entrepreneurs, and all they're doing is like building really advanced machine learning models to like predict what ocean is happening in the ocean, so you can figure out like what things need to be done to save it, figure out how to reduce carbon. And these are not the things that we're talking about every day in the news, the like chatbots and all that sort of thing, but they are real AI. And they are really, really cool, and they are really advancing really quickly. And I like those things a lot, the most. Because
that's where you're going to get to the plateau of productivity with applications like that. So let's be clear, though. I think that, especially in popular media, AI gets confused with programming, with computers. So let's be clear. What makes something AI? You said, Doc Rock, it's machine learning.
Well, anytime you can take a bunch of data and have the data start to model itself based off of its previous data, that would be some artificially intelligent.
I think of AlphaZero, which was Google's program that played chess and Go, and they didn't give it they gave it the rules to play Go. That's all they gave it, and it played itself in 4 hours 1 billion games, and learned how to play Go from that. Ended up beating a very high level pro Go master. And that's, to me, that's a machine that you just tell it what the rules are and it will figure out how to play. And it did that. I think that's pure AI. I think you could say, I would agree that that's AI. That's no human wrote an algorithm for that.
There's AI, there's machine learning, which is part of AI. There's generative AI, which is a form of machine learning. So it's not one thing. I think there'll be all kinds of different cycles. But
is there some simple definition that we can use so that we can distinguish it from coding?
I give my personal definition, but there's no consensus.
Okay.
I usually say it is any type of computer technology that is specifically trying to mimic human behavior. So specifically trying to mimic the human ability to process large amounts of information and make new understandings from it.
I don't think that's AI necessarily, though, Ben, because Eliza, which everybody agrees was not AI, was a decision tree, the early psychiatrist that's built into Emacs. That was a program, pure and simple.
But that was not agreed. But that was not AI.
It was trying to mimic humans, though.
It was fake AI.
Fake AI.
It was fake AI. But like, for example, the ChatGPT stuff is it is just writing its kind of own code in itself. Basically, all it's really doing is predicting using this constant learning that it's done, the next most likely word to say. That is definitely some AI. It's just like.
But that's where I think the machine learning or the training itself stuff is important. So ChatGPT is a large language model, and it learned from a large corpus, mostly from the internet, of content, how to do very good autocorrect, because that's actually what it does. It's very good autocorrect. But it learned that from a corpus of information on its own. Nobody said, whenever you see you should follow it with a noun. Nobody told it that. It figured that out. So I'd agree with you. That's AI. The problem is, and Harry, you've lived through some of these, but I've lived through them all, the AI winters. We've seen this hype cycle before. It's not the first time.
Yeah, I wrote a story a few years ago about this actually really good documentary that was on CBS in 1960 about the future of AI. And a lot of it actually was on target, except for the fact they thought that they would make enormous progress. Like by about 1964, they really envisioned getting to the stuff we're only figuring out now in just a few years. So the expectations are often out of whack with the reality. But I do feel like in the long run, it may not matter all that much. that we're confused about what AI is and isn't, because you really know this stuff matters when we stop talking about it, in the same way that people don't talk about PCs as a thing that much anymore. The internet, like Ben said, is not a specific category of business. It's all businesses. 20 years ago, people talked a lot about mobile. Now everything is mobile, so we don't talk about it. And, I really think that AI in the long run is just really sophisticated software. And I would not be surprised if 5 to 10 years from now, you just don't see that term used all that much anymore. And that's when we know that it really matters.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's kind of what we were saying. That's the plateau right there in the Gartner hype cycle.
Once it starts to plateau, it's just the air that we breathe, and that's when it's most relevant.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable though to try to define it and to pinpoint it, because when you are in the peak of inflated expectations, there's a lot of conflation between what a computer does and what AI is, and what's genuine AI and what isn't.
Some peaks have already come and gone, like when Microsoft launched the new Bing in February, I think. There were people talking about how maybe, Google would be a goner, and this was great news for Bing, and they could make enormous inroads in market share very quickly. As far as I can tell, none of that has actually happened, and Google has somewhat higher market share, and Bing slightly lower than it did. So that peak has already come and gone, and I'm sure there are other ones that are still to come, like for instance, with some of this productivity stuff, such as the tools which Google and Microsoft have announced and shown, but are kind of only now getting around to launching. I expect that those will not be quite as transformative as people think they are right now, but nobody knows for sure because they aren't quite here yet.
The next generation that we're going to see of ChatGPT and of Google's Bard is what they call multimodal, right? Google calls it Gemini. They've started showing it to people. OpenAI, is ChatGPT 5 multimodal? I guess even 4 has some multimodal. What is multimodal? What does that mean?
Multimodal means that it's not just you typing stuff and getting text back. Images might start to be part of it. It's a little bit like how in the early days of Google search, you searched and you just got plain links back. You still get those links back, but Google gives you all these different things, such as images and videos and so forth. And little by little, we're seeing AI move in a general direction where it still is kind of a chat experience, but it's not just about text conversations.
But isn't hallucination still a problem?
It's a huge problem.
Yeah,
it's huge. It's getting better, but it's still a huge problem. So it really depends on the way you use this stuff, right? If you're relying on it to write you a complex essay or to write you like legal documentation, no, it's not going to work. But if you're relying on it to like give you ideas, so like as an example, lots of students are now using it to ask questions like, how do I solve this math problem? Which they used to talk to their teachers about. It's interesting, actually, looking at the data.
Yeah, but I've been using Wolfram Alpha to do that for 7 years. Is that AI when Wolfram Alpha does it? I guess it is.
It has AI, but it's more about the interface. The AI, some of this stuff already existed. It's just ChatGPT gave a really nice interface that everyone could understand.
But you might well get the wrong answer from ChatGPT. Because what I understand people like Sam Altman saying is it's not written to be for factual accuracy. It's not, when you have an autocorrect, it's not checking for fact. It doesn't even understand what it's saying. So it can't.
Ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. But if you ask the question right, 9 times out of 10, you get the right answer.
No, but the 10th time is a problem.
The thing
it's
is,
not a good search tool because
humans get this stuff wrong just as much too. I will say this: the traffic for ChatGPT has increased significantly since the beginning of September, end of August. Guess why?
I thought it was dying.
Students all came back. All the students came back.
Because of the school.
Yeah.
Huge
audience.
With people, right? If I ask you the wrong question, right, or I formulate the question wrong, you're going to get a wrong answer. So here's a prime example. I used to do something really dumb. I used to be like, hey, Karen, what do you want to eat? And she's like, I don't know. Well, you can decide, okay, let's go get pizza. I don't want to eat pizza. Now I say, here's your choices: pizza or burger. Which one do you want? And she'll go, pasta. Boom. See, it was not AI. I machine learned. Don't ask her an open-ended question because you're never going to get an answer. But if I give her options, she'll pick one. It's the same ChatGPT works this. God, do not tell her I said that. I'm not trying to sleep at Leo's house, but you know what I mean.
It's a long flight. Let me tell you, you don't want to sleep here.
Upstream, right? You set the question upstream, you will get the answer that you're looking for, and it's kind of the same thing. And I think the difference between Wolfram Alpha and ChatGPT when you're talking about a math thing is it will tell you how it came to those, and you can learn from that. There is a possibility to learn from it.
The other day, I was trying to look up when a well-known person went to college and where he went to college. And I asked ChatGPT, and every time I asked it, it would give me something that was wrong, but close enough that you wouldn't know unless you already knew what the answer was. And I just sat there and I had it generated over and over again. And every single time it was wrong, but in a way that kind of made sense. And
that's dangerous.
It's incredibly dangerous because it not only gets stuff wrong, it often gets it wrong in a way that sounds like it could be true. So, and if you already know the answer, then what are you doing asking ChatGPT in the first place?
It really does depend on the kind of question you ask. As Doc said, it like, for example, if you're asking questions about, the stuff that most students would be asking about, like how you solve certain kinds of math problems, it'll get it right pretty much every time because there's so much information about those things. It's always going to almost pull the right answer for those kinds of questions. If you're asking more specific questions where there's very little data on the internet or it's more new, like details about an individual person who may not be super famous, it's more likely to get those wrong. And the thing is, I think what's happening right now is that certain, like especially students and certain people are working around where its limitations are and are getting more out of it. And it is nowhere near perfect, but depending on like the kind of like work you do, the person that you are, you can still get a lot out of it. I just always marvel at the fact that a year ago, this thing didn't exist. And now like this thing exists and you could just go and brainstorm with it about ideas for your next show or for your newsletter or for whatever. And it'll be awake 24/7. And it has access to all the knowledge of the human race. And of course, it'll get it wrong sometimes. But is it
ending in 2021? Wait a minute, though. But in September 2021, it stops.
Actually, that's plugins. That's no longer true.
Plugin.
I just did it.
Years, Bing.
Where I had to do brainstorming, and I did it for a class. I was teaching my people on my live stream how to do brainstorming using ChatGPT, and I was telling it to use different brainstorming models. Like I had to do Scamper model, I had to do Six Hats Thinking model, and that kind of stuff. It nails every time because you're asking a question that's like that. But I will also admit, to Harry's point, I was showing someone the built-in biases people say of ChatGPT, and I had to correct that. So I did an example to prove the built-in bias. I was helping a friend of mine who is a Black history major, and we were like, let's look up some of the top Black female poets in history, and it couldn't pull that list together. And she's like, see, ChatGPT is fouled. And I was like, no, the internet is missing majority of that information. You and I know because we have parents and books and things like that, but the internet doesn't actually know because that shows the bias that's built into the internet. That's not ChatGPT's fault. However, we can give it these documents, right? So we have these PDFs. Let's throw these PDFs at it and tell it to re-ask the question. And now that we've seeded it with the proper information, it's there. So what it does help highlight is some of the biases that are just built into the internet. So yeah, maybe Harry, the reason why it couldn't find the direct answer to the person that you were looking for is the information about that person isn't well spread or whatever.
This is true. This is a well-known person, but not so well that this information was all over the internet, which is why I went to ChatGPT in the first place. But I did it kind of as a test because I already knew that ChatGPT is actually not all that great for getting information, which is difficult to find with Google. If Google can find it, then ChatGPT can also find it. And if Google struggles, then there's nothing magical about ChatGPT for the most part. That makes it better at that.
I think you're missing the main point, though, which is that it will blindly and happily invent stuff.
Right.
Links to articles that don't exist. People are dead when they're not. Schools they went to, they didn't. It doesn't. It's kind. This is why I think when you're generating images, you're safe. Because there's no correct or incorrect image. As soon as you're asking it for factual information, I think you're making a huge mistake.
I think we're going slightly like off on the direction because I'll give you an example of like how I use AI. And actually, this came from my co-founder, Matt Schlicht, at MattPRD, for anyone who wants to follow him. He and I will like talk into Discord, like to get like an audio transcript of just like what happened in the week, just random notes in our head. And then we'll copy and paste that entire transcript, put it into ChatGPT, just ask it to organize it and give us the to-dos. And then bam, I suddenly have all my to-dos. I have organized notes from the week. I have organized information. I'm suddenly way more productive. I have an AI assistant that follows me onto Zoom. It's called Otter. And it takes a transcript of the calls that I have. And then I can ask it a question like, who said X? Or what were the to-dos that someone gave? And they're pretty much right because it's coming from a short piece of data. And the end result is like, I don't have to take notes in the meetings anymore. I can just ask the Otter. It's like having the AI assistant there. It is a really powerful tool that requires a lot of work to really learn. If you rely on it for facts and for like Googling, you will fail. But if you rely on it for productivity kind of things, you could do really, really good things with it.
So then let me reframe it. Because you were saying you just have to ask the question right. That's actually not the answer. You just have to know what it can do and what it can't do. You shouldn't be asking it for issues of fact because it doesn't know what it's saying. But if you're asking it to summarize, one of our staffers is in our Discord. He says his mom is under treatment, and he says, when I go to the doctors, I record the doctor's talk. I use something like Otter AI to transcribe it. I use another tool to interpret it and synopsize it and then deliver it to the family. It's very helpful. That seems like because you're giving it a corpus and you're saying, just summarize this. That seems, so it's not merely asking it the question in the right way. It's being, I think, and this is where the hype cycle has been very harmful. It's understanding what it can and cannot do.
It's really good at summarizing things for sure.
It's great at that.
That's what I use it for.
Yeah. That's fine. Or brainstorming because it's hallucinating. So you don't know what you're going to get. But you are a human with agency and you can reject the stuff that makes no sense. But you're not asking it as a reporter writing a story about somebody. Can you give me this guy's CV? Because that would be a mistake. Now, mistakes happen. You can go to Wikipedia and get the same and get errors as well. Humans, as you pointed out, make mistakes too. But I think because it's AI, there is, at least in the culture, this sense of, this is just as in the early days of computers, we kind of did the same thing. Oh, it's from a computer, it must be true. In the early days of the internet, we said the same thing. Oh, I read it on the internet, it must be true. We've learned the mistake that is.
Have we?
Well, I wish we would.
Really?
Well, we should.
Some of us have, hopefully.
Yeah.
Only some of us have, Leo.
I know, that's a good point. So that's why I keep harping on this. Is there's so much hype for what AI can do that it's really important to understand what it can't do. And it really isn't serving it, the conversation when Sam Altman says it's an existential, or Elon Musk says it's an existential threat to humans' existence. That is really overhyping it. It's really important to understand what it can do. If you're going to synopsize some PDFs, that's great. That's great. So but the problem is, here's the problem. That doesn't sound as cool.
There are lots of interesting, I think, cool use cases being built. I was like explaining before, I saw, I was speaking, like I said before, a week ago at the Climate Tech Summit, like Climate Week in New York. And there's just these amazing companies leveraging AI, some using generative, some using traditional AI, which is called machine learning, to just do amazing things. And I think what's happening right now is that a lot of developers are trying to figure out, how can I use this new technology, the large language models in particular, and push them to their limits in specific ways. Some are like summarization, it was a common one, but I'm starting to see more that are very vertical specific, and they train it really specifically to like reduce the errors by a lot and to give it specific information, like legal cases, for example, or to like write really like, the better first version of an email. And so I think there will be a lot more things like that. And I do think that the error rate will reduce. But also, is it going to replace people Googling? Not completely, no. But there is something happening. We are definitely in an overhype cycle. It always happens in that beginning. Right. I have no idea where it will land, though. And the big question is always like, does it land more like like we can name a bunch of threatening technologies, crypto and all that recently, or is it more like it? We've talked about this again, the internet or mobile or just things that are like part of the basis. They're not perfect technologies, but they do make, they are a fabric of our lives. And my guess is, what I always do is I always look at what the Gen Alpha, this generation in school is doing, and their behavior is to go to ChatGPT to ask questions of how to solve problems, not to like write my essay. It's like, how do I solve this problem? What is like the method for doing it? And they do it over and over again. And they're going to be doing this when they come out of college and when they come out of high school in the workplace. And it's going to be the same way that they use a calculator. They're just trained on this stuff, and it's already happening.
I'll give you a very timely real-world example. As you know, Tesla and others are creating autonomous heavy-duty trucks. It's a perfect use for it. They stay on the highways. Self-driving works pretty well on freeways. 10,000 plus pound trucks. California Assembly passed a bill which requires a trained human driver to be present in those vehicles. And you know what? I'm not sure the Assembly was wrong on that. It seems like, you got a 10,000 pound plus vehicle hurtling down the highway at 80 miles an hour. Maybe there should be a safety driver. The governor on Friday vetoed it and said, no, you don't need safety drivers. Let them go. Of course, as California goes, so goes the nation. If you create these trucks and they can't drive in California, that's going to be a big problem. And I don't know why Gavin Newsom decided it was, a bad idea to have safety drivers. Is he succumbing to AI hype, or is he right?
Well, we've seen with robo-taxis, which are everywhere in San Francisco, that the people who build the tech don't necessarily anticipate every issue that's going to happen in the real world, which is why activists can do things like put a safety cone on the hood and totally flummox a cruise robo-taxi. So in some ways, trucking's a little bit easier of a challenge just because they're spending most of the time on a highway and don't need to stop, and there aren't people running back and forth. But while I'm not an expert on this technology, it does kind of feel like we'll only truly know what could go wrong when it's a little bit more commonplace than it can ever be in the more of the controlled testing that they're doing these days.
The CEO of General Motors Cruise self-driving vehicles was pissed off because the Department of Motor Vehicles forced them to slash their fleet in half after a number of collisions. He said there have been far more collisions with humans driving these cars in the same period of time.
I mean, if we held humans to a high standard, we wouldn't be allowed to drive either.
It is an interesting way we perceive things, because by all measurements, most of the like self-driving vehicles do perform better than a human, but we hold the machines to a higher standard for who actually, I don't really fully know the reason. It's just psychological, but really humans are dangerous creatures in front of these like giant death machines that we go and drive around.
Does a safety driver make an autonomous truck safer or less safe? Maybe it makes it less safe.
For sure. The reason he's doing it, if I had to suspect, is because he just wants to make sure that self-driving trucks advance and like that the technology and the building and the companies there.
He probably also has donors at Waymo and Tesla. I mean, it's sad, but we can no longer trust politicians to do the right thing because we know too much.
The more interesting question is, will they the House, the Senate, the legislative branch of California overturn the veto? Because that actually hasn't happened, apparently. I looked it up in decades, but they could with 2/3 majority in both houses.
And it passed with a big majority.
Yeah, will they let it lie? Will they not? I don't know.
Teamsters, International Brotherhood of Teamsters, wanted Newsom to sign the bill. They say autonomous trucks, some of which weigh over 80,000 pounds, are unsafe. Oh, and by the way, there's the issue of job losses, right? Teamsters represent drivers, so obviously they're against it.
Although part of the reason that I think this technology does ultimately make sense is that driving a truck in the when all is said and done, is not something that appeals to all that many people, and it's really tough to get enough truck drivers to drive all these trucks.
There's a shortage.
There's a shortage, and we're more and more dependent on these trucks delivering all the stuff we're ordering over the internet. So it's not like we can find enough humans to drive these trucks, and I think there's a lot to be said for AI being applied to the kinds of jobs that not enough humans want to do in the first place.
Harry is nailing a very important point. We spend a lot of time talking about job loss in various categories, and it tends to be the ones that are the loudest are ones that no young people want to do. So we're not backfilling that. We're just trying to appease the crew that is still there. In Japan,
unfortunately, the crew that's still there is the one writing all the articles. They're the ones at risk.
I mean, what they do in Japan for jobs that are becoming obsolete is the government actually steps in and it helps make sure that those people know that they're covered through the rest of their life. They just take care of them so that they don't.
We don't do that here. Yeah.
Well, I've talked to Aurora, which is one of the big names in autonomous trucking, and basically their argument is that the people who are currently driving trucks don't have a lot to be concerned about. There will be enough jobs for them, and the challenge is they're not being replenished with younger people, and that is where the value comes in of autonomy.
It will almost certainly have to be that case. I think we're also not yet thinking, we have to think more about that personal, like what happens if, people are losing their jobs to some of these AIs. I'm going to give a plug. It's my fiance, Deborah Yarchin. She's an award-winning playwright. She actually wrote an award-winning play called Drive. It's about a group of truck drivers who lose their jobs to self-driving trucks.
Oh, wow.
Very relevant for.
Oh, wow.
So it won the Newcomb Award over at Dartmouth. And so it goes through that personal turmoil, and it asks questions about UBI and what role does that play if we do move towards it? Because to me, it's inevitable. We're going to end up towards the self-driving trucks. They do just, we are going to have a shortage of drivers. They don't have to sleep. You could drive them 24 hours. It makes sense from an economic perspective. So it'll happen. But we haven't thought at all about how we're going to shift our economy, not just for the self-driving trucks and truck drivers, but for AI in general, as it will at least, if it destroys jobs, probably it will at least transform a lot of jobs really quickly. And it's really hard to change jobs if you've been doing the same thing for 2 decades and then you suddenly don't have that job anymore. Lots of questions to answer.
American Journal of Transportation. The truck driver shortage continues in the U.S. 80,000 drivers are needed this year to make up the loss. And they say by the year 2030, there'll be a shortage of 160,000 truck drivers. So now, there is a difference between long-haul drivers. That's the drivers that are replaced by these robo-trucks, and less than full loads drivers, short-haul drivers, and less than full load. And I think that it is the case. I can't remember where the shortage is. Is it among LTL or is it long-haul? I can't remember.
I feel like it's across.
Long haul, I think, is a challenge because there aren't all that many people who want to spend their entire life
You're on the road. Yeah.
It's a hard lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Grandpa did it.
People age 55 and older make up more than half of the current long-haul truck drivers. So it is not a young man's profession. Now, there are plenty of jobs that young people would like that might be taken over by all the good PR jobs are going to go away. I was talking to somebody who just completed his highest level degree in actuarial science. An actuary is somebody who calculates statistics for insurance companies on, what should the premium be on an insurance policy so that we make money, and that's there's a lot of statistics. And I didn't say this to him because he was very excited. He's getting a great high paying job because of this. But I wonder how long before AI does actuarial stuff, and you don't even need what do you need a human for? Those people should be worried, right?
At least half the amount of humans potentially.
Yeah.
Maybe not replace all, but maybe
what jobs are most at risk? Ben, you have an AI startup. I mean, this is something you've been covering for years.
Yeah, I've been doing this since 2016, which is crazy when I think about it. anything where there's repetition and sifting through large volumes of data. Legal is an example of a perfect one where AI will have a real impact.
Although we did see that lawyer get censured by the court for submitting a brief that he used ChatGPT to write, and it was factually wrong. It made up precedents.
It's an example of using the technology wrong and asking the wrong question.
Right.
Versus, like, there are some people building, companies that specifically focus on legal and they train it on cases.
If I were going into, a college senior trying to figure out what my career should be, you say, don't be a lawyer. Is that right?
It's more like the type. So, for example, in journalism, I would be a copywriter. I already know a lot of copywriters who are losing clients and losing more jobs. It's absolutely happening because for a random, company in the middle, like for random companies, they don't actually care how accurate the thing is. They just want to have some content that ranks. They don't care at all.
Yeah.
However, if you, for example, investigative journalism, not going to be a problem. Why?
Because humans need to do that. Yeah.
It's not about writing. It's about sourcing.
Right.
It's about deal flow. It's about uncovering secrets. Columnists, same kind of thing.
Could AI get good enough to do that job too?
If so, it'll be a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I just, to give a plug to Fast Company, our current cover story is a big story I did on Microsoft and AI, so it's relevant to this conversation. And I got to talk to Satya Nadella and all these other people, and I don't see AI successfully convincing a company like Microsoft to let it interview its CEO anytime soon. And I was only able to get that because of they had some interest in the brand and like an existing relationship with us. And I'd say that humans who are going to be journalists need to focus on the stuff that humans do well, which is stuff like relationships with other human beings. That's going to be very difficult for AI to replicate.
I don't know. I don't know what a CEO does, but it feels like a CEO's job could be done pretty well by an AI.
Agreed.
It'll never happen because CEOs are the ones that are going to keep that from happening. But honestly,
middle management, though.
Middle management? Do you need middle management?
I think AI could do part of the CEO's job, thereby freeing the CEO to focus more on the stuff where human judgment does matter. But that's true for all kinds of jobs, probably including my job. But there are certainly parts of being a journalist I could offload to a computer, giving me more time to really emphasize the stuff where I do bring some unique value.
Yeah. You were at the Microsoft event. I want to talk a little bit about that. Let's take a little break when we come back. We've got a great panel here. I'm sorry, I kind of often get into this AI discussion because I'm trying to understand this. And I think there is a lot of misinformation. I want to get the real information as best we can. You deserve that. And when you get people who are smart like this, dig in on it, it's great. I do want to talk about your interview with Satya and the Microsoft event. Harry McCracken's here from Fast Company. Also Doc Rock from Aloha Wahoo. And my good friend Ben Parr, who is the AI analyst. So that's, that's why we got you guys. We got the good people in. So I should ask you these questions. Our show today brought to you by, you know the name IT Pro TV, right? We've been talking about them for 10 years, since they started. Well, now they're ACI Learning. And that is really good news because they get the resources of ACI Learning, but they keep all the things we love about IT Pro TV. When you talk about talent shortages, it's not just truck drivers. 94% of CIOs and CISOs agree attracting and retaining talent is job one. With today's IT talent shortage, more important than ever that if you've got an IT team, you keep them up to date, you keep them happy, you keep them informed. And if you want to get into IT, there's no better time to do it. 87% of companies say they have skill gaps in their employees. That's where IT Pro TV and ACI Learning can come to help because ACI Learning now has something called Insights. It is a skills gap analysis tool. You can use Insights to find out what your team knows, what they don't know, where the training needs to happen, and make sure that the training you're providing is working. This is a great tool. In a quick 1-hour assessment, ACI Learning's Insights will allow you to not just see, but understand and fix the skills gap on your IT team. This is a solution every IT manager wants. With insights, you can identify specific skills gaps in your employees. You can see where your team's weaknesses are. You can empower your team then with personalized training, not redundant training for stuff they already know. What's the point? Stuff they need to know, right? Blanket training wastes money and time, and maybe even more importantly, bores your team. Keep the team happy. They love it when they're learning something new. And that's what you can get from ACI Learning. Insights offers detailed solutions, support, strategy, issues recommendations. It'll actually work up a training plan for individuals or your whole team. You can compare your results against other organizations so you know how you're doing. You can test your skills and close the gaps with practical labs that allow trainees to focus on the skills they need the most. And it's training they love because it's informative, but it's also engaging. It's entertaining. It's training from people with a passion for the subject, and that passion communicates. ACI Learning helps you retain your team and entrust them to thrive while you're investing in the security of your business. It's a win all around. 7,200 hours of content, engaging content. New episodes are added all the time. They've got 7 studios running 5 days a week because, IT is always changing. New tools, new certs, new questions. ACI Learning stops its competitors with a 50% higher completion rate. And that tells you something. That tells you that these are videos that people really enjoy and helps them. Because nobody's going to do it just because they're entertaining. They're doing it because they're learning. Training solutions your business has been waiting for. Future-proof your team and your company with insights from ACI Learning. And if you're an individual, there is no better time to get into IT and no better way than ACI Learning. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. If you're a company, your discount can range from 20 to 65% on that IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. Here's the deal. You go there, fill out the form, get a quote tailored to your needs. It'll tell you how much you're going to save based on the size of your team. Go.acilearning.com/twit. The best IT training, the best tools. You gotta try it. ACI Learning at go.acilearning.com/twit. Please use that address, by the way, so they know you saw it here. And we thank ACI Learning. They've been a great partner all year long, our studio sponsors, and a great company with a great heritage. We appreciate their help. Satya Nadella is winning big tech's AI war, says Harry McCracken. That's a pretty good get. That's a big interview. Was this right after the Microsoft event this week?
Well, this was for our current print issue. So no, actually, I worked on this over the past few months. And of course, one of the challenges with writing for a print magazine is it kind of has to be stuff of at least a certain degree of lasting value because you're not going to capture the breaking news. And so,
but I'm so glad that people like you still do these long, in-depth profiles and you get so much value out of this. So that's exciting. How much time did you get to spend with Satya?
For this story, I spent, I guess a little over an hour in 2 chunks. And I talked to a whole bunch of other people like Kevin Scott, the CTO, and Mira Murati at OpenAI.
Yeah.
And I actually, 7 years ago, did a previous cover story on Nadella. And this was kind of a sequel because so much has happened in that time. And I did sort of feel like just all the accumulated thinking I've done about Microsoft helped me tackle this one.
How important is AI to Microsoft going forward?
I mean, right now, I think if you ask them, they would say it's almost everything. And the thing that people latch on to is this deal they made with OpenAI to get access to GPT, which is pretty new and was a really smart, prescient move. But my story talks about the fact that Nadella has been CEO for a little under a decade. And much earlier in his tenure, he started to reorganize the company around AI. They'd been doing AI for 30 years and almost had a reputation for it not really resulting in anything all that valuable in the real world. And he kind of put more of the people into one big team. And he started a meeting of all his top executives that was entirely about AI. And so when the OpenAI opportunity came up, I think they were much better poised to grab it than they might have been if he hadn't done a lot of other moving of the chess pieces previous to that.
I think it's safe to say, I mean, you look at the Steve Ballmer era, and then the transition to Satya Nadella, he has essentially pivoted the company. He has moved it into the cloud. He's done it very skillfully. He's made it very valuable. He's been a great CEO, I would say. What is it? It's almost, is it 8 or 9 years now?
It's going to be 10 years
10.
early next year.
Yeah. He has done a brilliant job. What's interesting, this event Microsoft had this week, for the first 6 months of the year was going to be a Surface event. It ended up not really. Surface was almost an afterthought. They introduced Surface Laptop Studio 2, and they updated their Surface Laptop Go. But really, it was all about AI, and it was all about Copilot in Windows, the next version of Windows. Copilot, of course, is Microsoft's AI. They said it's a single Copilot across all services and apps. DALL-E 3, the new image generation tool from OpenAI, is going to be part of Bing Chat. Personalized answer. I mean, this was all about AI. This was transmogrified from a Surface event.
The hardware was kind of the one more thing at the end.
Yeah. Kind of a shock. In a way, this shows that how Microsoft, first of all, Surface was almost a hobby for Microsoft. Everybody wonders, really, why bother? You've got Azure, which is their cloud business. And incidentally, smart move with OpenAI, because what does OpenAI spend all that money Microsoft gave it on? Azure. So it comes right back in. In fact, I suspect a lot of the $10 billion was Azure credits. So AI is good for Microsoft as a business, right?
It's a differentiator.
Not just a product.
For them.
Yeah, it's a product and
Right.
it's a business.
It's the product. It's a business. It's a differentiator. They sell it to their enterprise customers. They can make it feel different than what you get on a Mac or something. It's like, look, I've said it here on this show before. I do think Satya Nadella is like the best CEO, public company CEO of the last decade.
I agree.
I'd give the award maybe to NVIDIA CEO for just this year, but the decade, Satya, incredible turnaround, just insane.
Well, and
what they've been able to do.
who Benson Wong and Satya Nadella and Tim Cook get compared to is Sundar Pichai at Google, who is, if they're at the top, he's got to be at the bottom of the list. Yeah? Am I wrong?
No.
And Google, which, should have owned this, has been playing catch up on AI. It's interesting, though. Apple has no AI at all.
Don't believe that.
That's not true.
That's not entirely true. No.
Well, Siri ain't the most intelligent beast in the kingdom. No. Where is Apple's AI?
On a secret squirrel. They're waiting for the exact right moment for it to pop out. And you know what they're very famous of? They're very famous of sitting back and watching everybody run to the dance floor and, do all of this stuff. And they sit back and they watch, and then they just stroll in with the dopest outfit, with the thick chains and the fresh pair of dunks, and just takes over the dance floor like the J-Lo. They're very, very famous for that. So they're just literally just sitting back and watching. And when the Vision Pro comes out, right on the heels of that, they're going to be like, oh, yeah, and by the way, here's this AI thing we've been working on for 15 years.
What will it look like? What will it look like?
I mean, not know. But
I mean, I guess you did argue, and I think you can argue that there was more and more AI in the phones, as in computational photography and
yes,
yeah.
That I mean,
not
but
Siri.
I mean, the AI type of stuff that we're doing right now. Siri is, if as an Apple fan person, I won't let myself be called the boy at 57 years old. But as an Apple fan person, you
can be a fan geezer at that age. You're the fan geezer.
Is freaking Siri. Like, Siri, you're hurting.
It's terrible.
My feelings. Like, what is your problem? And I was like, okay, now with the new phone and with the watch, I can do all the computations right in the watch. Let me ask this girl something. And she was like, huh? I was like, listen.
Let me see what I found on the web about that. Let me ask my buddy ChatGPT about that. I don't know nothing about it.
Yeah,
so Apple hired John Giandrea from Google to run their AI like 4 or 5 years ago. So they have very good people. In fact, Wayne Ma, just a couple of weeks ago in the Information, Apple boosts spending to develop conversational AI, and there's Gian Andrea as the cover boy for all this. But it's all as with everything with Apple, because they're very tight. We don't know what they're doing. It's all in-house.
One of the interesting... Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, one of the interesting things at the Microsoft event is that with the Windows Copilot, you are starting to see AI being built into operating systems in a way that's meaningful. And instead of having to burrow through Windows trying to figure out how to do something, you can just tell Windows to do it. And I do feel like
but the examples they showed are so dumb. Like, hey Bing Chat, turn on dark mode. Well, that's a dopey thing. Anybody can. Or, hey, Bing Chat, generate a Spotify playlist for me. Those are trivial, useless.
Maybe, but if you use Windows, there are like dozens to hundreds of those things you need to remember how to do. And I do.
That's just a testament to how complicated Windows has become. On the other hand,
operating systems may evolve, and Apple.
Sorry, I just unplugged my headset. Go ahead, Harry.
I was just going to say, I think Apple needs to sort of think about some of that stuff, and at some point it'll be way more sophisticated than what Microsoft is showing now.
I'd like to see
operating systems could evolve.
Hey, make a pivot table in Excel to show me my yearly profits if I make this widget and don't make this widget. Now they're
doing that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
That's coming. Or it's already here in some cases, but it's just, it's, like you can even do that ChatGPT by using the code interpreter and uploading it in, and they're going to do the same kind of code interpreter stuff.
I see see a lot of programmers say, I can use GitHub Copilot and it writes my code. That seems very dangerous to me. Shouldn't you? I mean,
code is, in general, really structured. It's actually in the same way that like law and accounting are really structured. Code is really structured. It is a great use case for like some of the stuff that is just like, normally written that you just have to rewrite over and over again. It takes over those. You have to have the human for the more complex portions.
But you don't have to write the login code again anymore because it knows how to do that.
Or just like a long call to the database or whatever thing that you might have to just rewrite over and over again.
One thing I've seen that's pretty cool, Copilot can look at a SQL query and tell you what it does, or can look at a complex regular expression and say, that's what this does. That's a useful tool. That's every programmer can. I see a lot of programmers, swooning over GitHub Copilot. So okay. I mean, what is Apple going to do with this?
I think some of the first things you're going to see is, like you said, things that have to do with the OS. And I think one of the brilliant ones that even Siri can't do right now is like, hey, listen, I'm having a little bit of a weird issue. Can you contact the Apple Store and show me the next 5 available appointments?
Oh, that'd be cool.
And it pop right back up on the screen and be like, you can go to Ala Moana, Kahala, or Waikiki, and you got times frames X, Y, and Z. Which one would you like me to set up? You know what? S girl who right now currently is horrible. Can you give me 2:00 Tuesday? Bet. All right, boom. 2:00 Tuesday is booked up. You're going to see Harry McCracken check in 15 minutes early. Make sure you bring this.
Wouldn't it even be better if it also knows about you? See, I want a personal agent that knows all about your schedule and your life.
Yeah, because it's going to already do that because your calendar is already on your computer, so it can already see that.
How about if it says, I got it. This will be great. Doc Rock, your laptop is about to fail. Why don't you go out and see if you can change it and we'll just we'll book an appointment for you, and you'll just go get it fixed because it's going to fail.
100%. Yeah. Right? Read the smart stuff. Smart's kind
But whatever you do, don't let it open the pod bay doors. Okay, you have to have a key to the pod bay doors. I'm just saying.
You can't do that.
Can't do that.
Yeah, I think it would definitely be to do stuff like that.
Amazon at their event this week. And I think there's rumors that Apple's going to do this. They're going to put more AI in Echo and Siri. Do we want that?
Yes, we do.
Do we want that?
Because they're not great right now.
They're going to get chatty. They're going to start talking to you.
Any improvement's an improvement. Like all I really use my Echo for in my Alexa is just like basic commands, weather, things like that.
That's the problem. That's why Amazon loses $10 billion a year on Echo, because you're just using it as a timer and asking it for weather reports. You're not buying.
But I should be able to ask but I should be able to ask it questions about my calendar. I should be able to ask it questions, about the world. I should be able to ask more complex questions, and it should be able to deliver an answer. Same way we could do it in text with, the new large language models. They're coming. It's all coming. Apple always waits until it's perfect, and then you're like, "Holy crap! Why did we ever use?"
So you think that's what's going to happen? That they've been looking at this, going, "We can do it better. We're not going to release it until we can do it better."
Well, right now, guess what everybody else is doing? Everybody else is letting all the bad press and all the weird stuff happen and taking all the heat, and Apple just ignores all of that.
Yeah.
And then as soon as all of the bad press and now people are starting to feel a little bit good about it, Apple comes out, "You thought that was good? Watch this new outfit. Wow."
It does remind me of when we had iPod MP3 players that were this big and they were terrible interfaces, and Apple comes along with the iPod and it's like, oh, that's not an innovation. We've had these before, but you made it better. So maybe Apple can do that again. They haven't done that in a while.
I do think that Apple will probably focus on actual useful stuff, like the new Apple Watch. It has like this double tap, where it can tell that you're doing this, and if you're not trying to make that gesture, it knows you're not trying to do it, and that's totally machine learning because it's based on all this data about stuff like the exact movement of your fingers and stuff like your.
They do that with their
so forth.
With fitness, with their workout stuff. If you get on a elliptical, it knows you're on an elliptical because they have done a lot of machine learning on how people move. When you're on a rower, it knows the difference. And so it will actually say, "Are you on elliptical right now?"
I don't think Apple did not use the term AI once at its event the other week, as far as I remember. No. But it was full of small, useful things that they couldn't have done without one form of AI or another.
They have not uttered the word AI and anything at all for the last however. They've completely never said the word, and that's how I know they're working on something dope.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ben.
No, it's the Apple playbook to a T.
I love this in the information article, big long article about Apple and working on AI, and the one line, an Apple spokesperson declined to comment. That's all Apple had to say about that. Yeah, they're smart. You know what? They're smart. Well, everybody else is hyping it up and taking the arrows because they're the first over the hill. They're waiting and wait until the smoke clears, and they're going to release something. Maybe not even call it AI, just more useful, just better products.
I mean, look, in the end, I think actually looking at the business models of these big companies really shows you the direction things will go. Microsoft needs to excite developers because they're using Azure and other things. It makes sense for them to be early to these things because now more developers are using Azure and the new AI stuff with OpenAI and things like that versus for Facebook, for example, they don't want to sell a large language model to the public. So that's why they made it open source. For them, if they could improve it so that they could use it within Messenger and things, that's their win. And then for Apple, they just need to sell more devices. And for them, they're already selling lots of devices. They're going to make a bigger leap to make it so that it feels like, oh, I need to have this new device because it can scan my brain and it knows exactly what I'm thinking. And now I no longer need a phone that's a big square. It's like a little dot or whatever crazy thing they come up with. That is always what they do. It's just because their only goal is to sell more devices, and it gives them the capability to be patient.
Yeah.
Yes. Same with the headset, right? Like, we're not going to call it a VR headset because it automatically aligns it with all the other stuff that's out there that's fun and cute and gimmicky, but not really do anything. So they're going to use a whole different terminology, and they will even take the AI word and come up with something we're all the tech people going to say it's dumb, and we're all going to say it's silly, but then a whole bunch of people will use it and love it. And then we'll continue to say it's dumb and silly, but people make fun of their names when they switched to parks and they went to cats. But you know what you didn't have to remember? What number you were sitting on. And all the other operating systems, I'm on 5.3.1.x, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm on the one that's named after the place in California. And you can remember that. So there was a funny bit that Kimmel used to do, and it's like, what version of Windows do you have? Internet Explorer.
You talk in Harry, in your Fast Company cover story with Satya, how Microsoft was somewhat surprised by how far OpenAI had come with ChatGPT. Did it take them off guard?
I think so, because Microsoft had also invested a huge amount of effort in building an LLM, and they had infinitely more resources than OpenAI, and they didn't make as much progress. I mean, we know that even OpenAI was surprised by how much progress OpenAI was able to make. So it's not surprising that Microsoft was as well.
So Apple's focus, I would say, and this would be very Apple-y, is not to focus on the technology, but to focus on what it can do.
Yes.
And how it's going to make your life better. And I think that's smart because you also avoid the pitfalls that ChatGPT has had a little bit, where if you focus on the technology, then when it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, it becomes all about the technology not being very good. So focus on simple outcomes that you can achieve. How is Microsoft approaching AI in its future? It's certainly spreading AI on every product that it makes. What is their point of view on this?
Well, for now, I think they're focused on doing the types of AI that you would expect Microsoft to do. So operating systems are an obvious area. Productivity is a huge place for them. In search, they're a distant number 2, but at least they've been in the search game for a long time, and we know it matters. So I think all of these are powerful tapestries for them. Azure is also huge for them. Like, as everybody else in the world starts to build AI, most of it will run on somebody else's cloud, and Microsoft has the opportunity to catch up even more than it has with AWS by having the best AI. There are places where logically they might do some stuff like gaming where we haven't heard as much, but I think it totally makes sense for them to put the most energy right now into the areas that most define Microsoft and where there's the most opportunity to do transformative stuff, and probably also the most opportunity to make money.
Yeah. Well, and Microsoft's in a great position because their biggest, most important product is cloud, is Azure. And right. All of these AI models use the cloud. Azure is going to become the premier platform thanks to OpenAI for AI development. So if they have the best flavor of GPT in the cloud, that's a huge win for them. There is an advantage, and this has always been this way. We've talked about this with Siri and Google Assistant and Amazon's Echo. There is an advantage to operating in public. One of the advantages, the disadvantage, obviously, for OpenAI is that they're going to get a lot of arrows as they're the first over the hill, but they also get a lot more information by operating in secret. Not being public, Apple doesn't get as much feedback on what it's developing.
Well, yes and no, because a lot of people are getting the feedback from what they're typing in and doing that. Like you said, where Apple is going to put its stuff on, they're going to put their chickens on creature comforts, right? Almost every nook and cranny of iOS, of the built-in things that are in iOS and watchOS, has machine learning, which Harry said is a subset of AI. Right. So even now that I can do this to change things on my phone, on my watch, right, I am using stuff that humans do on a daily basis. Search, if I say cat on my photo album, I can find a cat in my photo album, even though it's mostly dogs. Sorry, people. If I say, hey, ramen from Osaka in 2023, I can get that exact picture.
It's a wonderful feature. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Right. So that stuff, all of that machine learning stuff that's built into basically every nook and cranny of iOS. And now that the processor, which Apple is doing different from everybody else, is they're focusing on processors, what their SIPs can do. That's also going to make them a little bit different because they're in control of the hardware and the language. So it's going to take a while. Yes. And it looks like they're sleeping, but they're sleeping with one eye open.
Historically, innovation in technology has come not from the big companies, from the incumbents, but from the little guys. Is AI going to be a different story where, because it's so expensive to create these LLMs, and it takes a lot of people and a lot of technology and a lot of brains, is it going to be the big guys that are going to win here? Is it the Googles, the Microsofts, the Apples, the Amazons? Or are we going to see innovations? Ben, you have a small AI startup. Are we going to see innovators from garages in this?
a ton, but I would argue. So, for example, the most innovation in this space is come from OpenAI in the last year, and they were a small company.
They were a startup, yeah.
They were a startup a year or two ago.
Yeah.
It's just because of the interest in the space and the usefulness of some of this technology, it's probably the fastest growing valuation I've ever seen, maybe in my lifetime, just skyrocketing for a reason. There are always big companies always win in some way. Like Nvidia is a huge winner out of all this.
Yeah.
No matter what, they win.
They're the Levi's.
Great.
They're selling the jeans to the gold miners,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, but there's innovations. There's these other companies that like were small startups, and then they became Anthropic. They became
Anthropic's pretty impressive, although that's a big Google investment, right?
I mean, this is how Google makes sure that they have some plays in all these other
a lot
areas,
of irons
right?
in the fire, yeah.
Yeah, Midjourney. There's like these ones, and Midjourney's never taken any money from anyone.
Midjourney's fascinating, right? That's a garage startup. He didn't want any investment. Yeah,
and they'll never. I knowing him, like I will be shocked if he ever takes money. Just watch tomorrow. They announce they took money. They won't. Like they're real, and like look, they're beating out like 1,000-person companies on the image front. So for sure, lots of startups, lots of areas. Now what we're going to see is how could you use this new set of technologies for daily life, and there are going to be a couple startups that crack that nut, and they're going to be billion-dollar companies.
Yeah. The creator of Midjourney, David Holtz, self-funded. He had sold a startup. I don't remember what it was, but took his money and
Magic Leap.
Oh, that's right, Magic Leap.
I remember because I went in to go see the first version of Magic Leap when I was at CNET and getting like to see the whole thing, and it's like super cool. But he's like this
not Magic Leap, not Magic Leap, Leap Motion.
Not the other one.
Leap Motion.
Leap Motion.
I had that thing where you make gestures in front of your computer, and it didn't take off, even though it was a very interesting idea.
And OpenAI's CTO, Mira Murati, is also a veteran of Leap. So,
interesting.
Two of the most important people started out there. And even though that technology didn't go anywhere, it apparently was a hotbed of interesting talent.
And I think Leap Motion must have been AI as well, because it had to understand what these
it was
gestures
like figuring out where your hand was.
Yeah.
Interesting enough technology to acquire. And
Information has a story. He doesn't need a VC in his life. How Midjourney's founder built an AI winner while rejecting venture capital. He's got now $200 million in revenue, 40 employees. That's pretty impressive. Okay, so I answered my own. You're right. There's a lot of startups doing this. Very interesting. Let's take a little break. We got lots more to talk about. Doc Rock, he's all in purple. People say, where did he get that amazing microphone muff?
Reporterstore.com. It's in the Netherlands, and it's only like $20 for the cuff, but it's like $20 for the shipping. But
it weighs 2 ounces. It's nothing.
Yeah, it weighs not even that. So now it's smart. I ordered them like 5 at a time, so I can.
And you're wearing a very attractive T-shirt, I might add. Thank you.
Lovely.
Yeah,
Michael Sart.
That, by the way, AI generated.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we have for all my skepticism on AI, and I am very skeptical. We have a guy, I've talked about him before, Anthony Nielsen. He's going to do, on our club TWiT, he's going to do an AMA soon, who has decided to become our AI guy, and he's thrown himself into this, and he's doing amazing stuff with Midjourney, with Claude from Anthropic. He's tried them all. He's doing all sorts of interesting things. We have an AI Leo in our Discord. We have, He's a wizard, and so he does a lot of our graphics. He's a very talented designer, and I don't know how much of that, Anthony, was generated by AI and how much was you. I think it was a human-machine collaboration, but I like it. He did a good job.
We're gonna need a word for that, not hybrid, because that just goes straight to car.
Yeah.
We're gonna need a word for the human.
Beast with two backs. No.
We need a catchphrase for the human-machine collaboration.
Yeah.
HMC doesn't.
No, we
cut
don't.
It.
The human made that.
A human made that. Help.
Okay.
Any more than you say, oh, the computer helped. No, a human made it, right? That's Benito. Benito Gonzalez is running our board, who is also a genius at this stuff. Yeah, you're right, Benito. When you make music
a human
with
made
your
it.
synthesizers, then nobody says, oh, yeah, that was a machine that made that. No, you made that.
I played the guitar. The guitar didn't play itself.
The guitar didn't make the music. Harry McCracken makes the music at Fast Company. He is the global technology editor there. And I'm glad they're giving you time to do long stories. Slow, as Stephen Levy called it, slow journalism. That's good.
It's a pretty cool gig.
Yeah, we need that stuff. I'm so glad, and you do a great job. So nice to see you, of course, as always. And Ben Parr, newly engaged. You're getting married, you said, in April?
Yes.
I met your fiancée.
So much wedding planning.
She's wonderful. As you said, a very talented playwright. That's neat. Congratulations. Go ahead.
I will leave it at, I never knew there was so much to think about with things like cakes.
Have you gone to the tasting yet?
That's next week.
Are you honeymooning in Hawaii?
Good idea.
I mean, I might need to come sooner and come visit you before end of year, because I would like somewhere warm and where I can sleep on a beach.
Oahu's wonderful up at the North Shore. So how has Maui's fire affected you, Doc?
Personally, not directly in the way you would think, but I mean, I know so many people, right? We're very connected individuals. A bunch of my friends had restaurants that are just completely gone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One of my best friends here, who is actually a chef here, him and his wife have been running a lot of the getting food and supplies to Maui from there. So it's a connected of Hawaii being at 2 degrees of separation. It doesn't really affect Oahu per se, but it definitely does have an emotional cost. And then knowing that our state, like, it's going to take us well over 15 years to even attempt to rebuild Lahaina, and it will never be the same. So I think there's that aspect of it. Yeah. And, we're very heavily affected by tourism revenue, much to the chagrin of many people that live here. And so that's going to affect the economy of Hawaii for probably a good 7 to 8 years.
We were talking about this with Johnny Jett. On the one hand, the Maui Tourism Bureau is saying, come back. We need you. We need the tourist dollars. But the locals are saying, don't come here. We're healing. What I don't know. I love Maui. It's beautiful. Beautiful.
That is really a tough one, and I have so much love and respect for the community here. But I think a large portion don't understand that without that tourist revenue, you're not going to do well. Right. So it kind of sucks. Like, literally, as tech people, Hawaii has a very good tech backbone. And we have been saying, stop letting tourism be our number $1. We can use some of the tech stuff here because we're the perfect place between Asia and the US as far as timing and things like that. And we end up shipping most of that brilliance out. And now, more than ever, we could use the dollars that would have come from our tech sector. And so those of us that have been in the tech sector here forever been saying, we can help you stop leaning on the tourist dollar. But the tourist dollar is so good, it's hard, It's like, I was just making money to pay myself through college. Okay, now you're finished college. Why are you still on? Well, because it's good money. That's why. So it's one of that weird, weird scenarios. So that was me. I was doing nightclub work because I just wanted to pay for college. I was making a grip, and I ended up doing it well into my 40s. Because I was making a grip. So, I know I should leave and I should not be doing this, but I was making so much money I didn't want to.
Right.
So, yes, that's the exact thing.
So you could go, you can certainly go to Wailea, or Hana's one of my favorite places in the world on Maui Island. It's okay. And be respectful, right? That's the key. Be respectful.
Be respectful. Our biggest problem with tourists, and I think the locals' biggest problem with tourists, is people like to come and do dumb stuff.
Yeah.
When the volcanoes were going off, you got people going up there and like taking pictures of the moon in the volcano. Stupid. Like it's a religious thing to people here. Like, it's a spiritual situation. Madame Pele is not to be toyed with. So going up and taking a picture for the gram with your butt sticking out, like, with the lava glowing, that's disrespectful.
Oh, you mean
Madame
that moon? I thought you meant the
different moon.
Different moon. No, oh my God, that's so stupid.
Some guy decided to relieve himself into the crater. These are sacred lands, people.
Don't do that.
Like, but,
that's one of the things I love about Hawaii is the Polynesian culture is so amazing, so beautiful,
very much
so warm, and ohana and that whole spirit, that aloha spirit. If you're respectful, go visit. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. Just respect the place and the people, because it's not Disneyland, folks. It's a real place with real people.
Tourists, you cannot put out a volcano with your pee.
Do not.
100%.
AI may be number 2, but not in the volcano, please. Please. All right, we are back, and we have more news. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I got the new iPhone. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I do it for work. It is like incrementally better than the old iPhone. Titanium's pretty, although a lot of YouTubers are scratching and breaking and nicking. Some say that the color, this is the natural titanium. Some say that the colored ones can be scraped. I don't care. You put it right in a case right away. And then other people are pointing out, well, if you're going to get a case, don't get Apple's fine woven case, their replacement for leather, because it's easily marred by scratches. iFixit had a interesting microscopic teardown of the, believe it or not, of the fine woven case, where they showed, actually, let me show you because it's a pretty wild picture. The fibers in this are 1/12 the size of a human hair. So let me show you the pictures using a microscope from Evidence Scientific. So there's what it looks like in your hand. There's what it looks like under 52 magnification. You can see each strand is composed of many strands, kind of like rope, filament. That black thing is a human hair. And then you can see the nylon filaments. They're 1/12 the size of human hair, 6 microns, that are woven together to make kind of ropes that are about twice as big as a human hair. Then they show what the damage happens to it. Let's see here. It's key scrape. So this is the normal untouched fiber. Sliced with a knife, you can see, but this is scratching, and all it does is it doesn't break the little nylon fibers. It rearranges them so it reflects light differently. So there seems to be some evidence that you could actually, somehow with rubbing cloth on it or something, rearrange these to make it look more normal. They tried damaging it in a variety of ways with coffee and so forth. It's going to hold a stain. Do not get hot sauce on your fine woven fabric. That's not a good idea. I have to say, I bought one of these, and I wouldn't recommend it. At $59, it's a lot of money, and very expensive for something that is not exactly loops. I think I would return it
just because I personally don't like the feel, but I got to say people are stupid. It really irritates me because, listen, I understand. I'm in the marketing department. Like, this stuff does get clicks. If you scratch leather, does it scratch?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of leather, is it takes on a patina of wear. I don't want a patina of wear on my fine woven case.
But that's what it's going to do. It's fabric, fam. Like, you don't go around scratching.
All right. Yeah.
But it's not the worst thing. Character in your case, that's fine.
I'm replacing it with leather, so.
See, I'm going to take this bottle of hot sauce and I'm just going to pour it on my phone.
No, look,
case.
It's a little teeny weeny
I'm going to
Tabasco.
chug this.
Oh my God.
It's super silly. And then, let me scratch the color on a titanium. Will it come up? Yes. If you scratch the paint on your freaking car, it'll come up. Like, come on, people. Like, the stuff that people do to try to make a mountain out of a molehill is so obnoxious right now, and it creates unnecessary, another argumentative, divisive type thing that our culture doesn't need. Like, stop looking for fights, people. Legit, stop looking for fights.
This is and I know you're a YouTuber, but this is the problem with YouTube, is it incenses sensationalism. I mean, if you want,
I call them out. I call them out 100%, Leo, because I think it's disingenuous, and I can name you 2 channels right now. Every Apple product, this is the cycle. This is the greatest thing that ever come. Oh, guess what? This is what Apple's not telling you. Oh, don't buy this because Apple's screwing you. Oh, we bought all of them, and these are the greatest products. Oh, you know what?
8 million views later.
They have 8 to 10 videos they make for every single Apple product, and it's the exact same video
cycle.
It's obnoxious. Yeah. And you know what? The 15 is in every phone is supposed to be incremental because the 14 people, Leo and I, aren't supposed to buy a 15. This 15 is for the 11 and 12 people. To them, it's a massive upgrade. You're not supposed to buy a phone every year. But somehow people like us in the tech cycle who buy a phone every year, and I'm literally sitting on the table 13, 14, and 15, we're a rare breed, and we're not supposed to talk about it from our lens. We're supposed to talk about it from the lens from the average person, because your audience is who you're supposed to be reporting to. And people are like, oh, I'm not going to buy the Apple Watch 2 because it's not a significant upgrade over the Apple Watch Ultra. You weren't supposed to replace an $800 watch. You never know.
There is, well, you know who's really big on the link bait? The Wall Street Journal. Insides Apple's spectacular failure to build a key part for its new iPhones.
Oh, yeah, this one.
The point of this is they tried to replace the Qualcomm modem chip. You remember they went to Intel to do a modem chip a few generations ago, and it was so slow they had to slow down the Qualcomm chip so the phones would perform equally. For a long time, Apple's really wanted to make everything inside of all of their hardware, right? They don't want to go to Qualcomm to make a chip. In 2018, Tim Cook, according to the Wall Street Journal, gave marching orders to create a modem chip. They hired thousands of engineers so they could get Qualcomm out of the iPhone and have it all Apple. They had hoped to have it ready for the iPhone 15, but tests late last year, I'm quoting the journal, found the chip was too slow and prone to overheating. More importantly, its circuit board was so big it would take up half the iPhone, making it completely unusable. They pay a lot of money, about $7.2 billion last year to Qualcomm for, it's not just the hardware. They also pay for licenses because Qualcomm owns a lot of these technologies and licenses them out to Apple. So there's still a Qualcomm chip in there.
I gotta pull my best Doc Rock, which is like, this is why it's called R&D. You spend money to try to figure these things out. Like, it literally, someone on Reddit pointed out, it literally just says in the article, they're still working on it because they're still working on it.
Done. Next year.
It's a really hard, complex problem that Qualcomm has done a really good job of solving. I expect one day Apple will go and solve it. Like, this is like not a crazy article. Apple has tons of money to spend on lots of R&D and research, and not everything will bear fruit. And also not everything will bear fruit immediately. It's clickbait.
Yeah.
If you have $27,300, Leo, and I ask you to give me $7, would you give it to me?
Yeah.
All right. So if you got 2.73 trillion valuation.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Shut up.
They spent the equivalent of $7 to do this. I get what you're saying.
Come on, shut up. I hate when they do that.
They say, the journal says that it is tricky to make these chips, unlike a CPU where, you know, it's a pretty straightforward thing. These guys got to work with all these outside environments, 5G and 2G and 3G, and
every country too.
In every country, and it's complicated, right?
I do think Apple was not that naive. They knew what they were getting into. Yeah. Even if it's taking longer, that probably doesn't come as a huge shock to them. And if the disaster would be if they at some point killed this project and had to go with Qualcomm forever. But assuming they actually do make a modem at some point, it'll be worth it on a variety of fronts, including the fact that it will save them money over time, and they really do not want to be dependent on Qualcomm, who they've had legal tussles with in the past. And with the chips they've made with their CPUs, we've seen how much value that has. And I mean, when the Mac switched over to an Apple chip, it totally re-energized those devices. And Apple can afford to be really patient if it pays off eventually.
Yes, I was going to say, Harry, I wonder if Aaron and Yang mentioned how much they saved on not paying Intel. If that's more than the $7 billion they spent, you know what I mean? Like, yeah,
right. One thing Apple was looking at, according to CNBC, they were working with Goldman to do a stock trading feature for iPhones, like a Robinhood built into your iPhone. That's, I'm sure, good money, but I don't know. Should Apple be in that business? They decided not to do it as the market slumped. So they thought the timing's not right. But they were prepared, apparently, to put a Robinhood in your iPhone. Not Robinhood's, but Apple's with Goldman's. Goldman has had some trouble with Apple. They claim they lost a lot of money offering the Apple Card. They wanted to get out of that business, right, Ben?
Yep, the Apple Card. Goldman has been slowly moving away. For those who don't really understand Goldman has always been, for these high end wealth, these large, working with other enterprises. They have not been a consumer bank, right? Banks like Citibank and Wells Fargo, their bread and butter is this business to consumer, this stuff that they do with consumers. And Goldman tried there's a lot of complicated stuff with issuing credit cards, with chargebacks, with all these other things that add up to costs. And if you really want to do it, you gotta keep doing it for a very long time. And honestly, I think Goldman's gotten they've evaluated the thing, and they've just decided they should probably pull back some, given with how the market's going, how deep the entrenched the competition is. I expect at some point that the Goldman Card will, Amex will take over that business or someone else, and it'll be fine. And Apple will definitely remain in the card business with somebody. What that exactly looks like, I don't know. So I wonder if it's also tied to the fact that Goldman wants to do maybe a little bit less consumer, that they're also maybe we shouldn't do the stock trading platform with Apple at the current moment.
Yeah.
The terms on the Apple Card are actually quite fair to the consumer, which is an unusual thing in credit cards, and apparently one of the reasons it turned out not to be so attractive to Goldman.
Yeah, I mean, I actually let Apple hold my Apple Cash in a savings account that has 4% API. I thought, well, that's better than I get from most banks. And why not? It's just sitting there.
You know what happened right after that, Leo? All the banks started offering.
I noticed. It's oh my God, we better up those interest rates. Apple's eating our lunch.
Yeah, I always held a lot of money in my PayPal account because of super chats and things that come from YouTube. All of my YouTube affiliate stuff. I started routing it straight to the Apple savings right away. And hey, that joint kind of halfway paid for my trip to Japan.
I know. I could live on 4% in my old age.
Yeah. That would. So I'm listen. I would Ben, and I really hope Amex takes it over, just because I feel like they're better at what they do. But yes, I love my Apple Card for right now.
According to CNBC, their source said the infrastructure for an investing feature is mostly built and ready to go if Apple ever decides to move forward with it. I feel like that's a risky business for them to get into, because if people lose money on, meme stocks and stuff, they're going to kind of blame, as they do Robinhood, blame Apple. They blame Robinhood for a lot of that, how easy it was and how cheap it was to trade.
Also opens you up to lots of lawsuits. Imagine if algorithmically the Apple stock is at the top and Google is 7 down, or Microsoft is 8 down.
But that's the way it is, Ben.
No, it needs to be Microsoft at the top, the iPhone.
Yeah. Let's see what else is going on. Let's take a little break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the Amazon event. We didn't talk about that yet. And a big departure from Microsoft. Amazon snags Panos Panay. More to come with an excellent panel. Ben Parr, it's great to see you as always. The technologizer, Harry McCracken, and the Doctor of Rock, Mr. Doc Rock. Amazon's hardware event. I did not get invited, but I never do, and it's not a streamed event. So did anybody watch? Anybody up on what Amazon? Who cares, right?
Yes.
Who cares? I'm sorry, but new chat capabilities. I got Wired Live blogged it. So they're going to put AI in Amazon's Echo. Not a surprise. We'll see how that works out. Everybody's going to do it, apparently. A new Echo Show 8, which looks a lot like the old Echo Show 8, but it's new. Echo. Does anybody own a pair of these Echo frames? Why?
Someone out there just
why?
Tweet X at us if they have the Echo frames, because I am deeply curious of the answer to that question.
Why?
So I tried them and it's weird. just leave it at that. I tried it at Podcast Movement. It's very, very
Oh,
weird.
were they there showing those off, or did somebody have them?
Yeah. No, they Amazon had a big booth. And
yeah.
Because they're trying to get more people to do Amazon podcasts because, well, everybody else is doing podcasts.
Right. So how does that work? Is it like is Echo in the frame and you talk to her? Is that what's going on?
Yes. It's in the frame.
That's it?
And one thing that's kind of cool, like you can answer the phone, you can listen to your podcast or your music or whatever while you walk around in frame. But the listening experience isn't that dope because it's not like a bone conductor. It's like a little speaker. I don't know. It was just weird. I don't think.
I mean, both have been doing this for years.
It sounds like that, right? It's just a little tinny
Bose
speaker.
has been doing this, and they have a bone conductor. That bone conductor they've been doing it for years.
That works well.
It works pretty well.
Yeah.
I have one of those.
Yeah.
Like, one of the issues with like Apple stuff, like, look, I know it is useful. A Kindle is useful. How often are you going to replace those things? You could have one of those for 5, 7, 10 years before you needed to replace them. There's no new thing that's like, wow, I have to go and like change out the thing that like listens to me for another thing that slightly listens to me better.
Right. Well, the only thing that makes sense, okay, the Fire Sticks make sense because now they added them to Wi-Fi 6. Helpful because of your streams and your speeds and stuff. So, look, guys, all we did was made the processors better. That's fine. You don't have to make up stuff. Just tell us that you're just doing it for, slight spec bumps, and we would be cool with that. But that's never what they tell you.
Can I give I agree, but one counter is that almost every TV is already built in with all the smart streaming. So you don't need a Fire Stick or a Chromecast anymore to stick in. Like, all the Samsungs come with everything built in.
Roku, I think, saw the writing on the wall. They started building Roku into some TV, a lot of TVs.
Amazon builds it into TVs. Them and Toshiba make.
They had Amazon TVs there. Yeah.
So that's why it's funny, but I agree with Ben. Like, it's at this point in time, it's all built into the smart stuff. So I haven't fired up my stick in forever.
Exactly.
They're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall, but it does feel like if these products ever change in a big way, it might have more to do with the AI, which is based in the cloud rather than the hardware. And there's a good chance that your old Amazon hardware will support this new AI. And so there's not a huge incentive to get the new stuff. I mean, I'm still using Amazon's original smart speaker, whose name I'm trying not to say because it's sitting right behind me. And it still works fine.
Don't wake her up. Don't.
I am
Aaron?
Soundbar, though. Only for just one TV that I have that I don't have any sound connected to it. And buying one of these at $120 versus buying 2 Apple baseballs at $200, that intrigues me.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that the 2 little Apple baseballs are phenomenal for watching TV.
Amazon is hiring. So this was kind of a 1-2 punch. First, we heard that Panos Panay, who was a strange fellow he started working on mice at Microsoft, and 20 years later, he was running Windows and hardware, and is very famous for his weird kind of channeling Steve Jobs keynotes in which he was always pumped for whatever it was. He's leaving Microsoft, probably by mutual agreement. I've been trying to find out was he pushed out? Did he want to get out? I think it was by mutual agreement. He's going to Amazon to replace the retiring Dave Limp, who ran Amazon devices. He was the guy who did the Amazon presentation. So Panos Panay, I guess, next year. Do you think he will attempt to put his stamp on what Amazon's doing, or is Amazon such a big battleship that it's going to be hard to change? He did a lot of things at Microsoft that maybe some people did not agree with. I don't know.
I think he does have a little bit of clarity of vision, which conceivably is helpful given the degree to which Amazon is usually about flinging spaghetti and seeing what works.
Microsoft absolutely didn't do that. I mean, Surface was a very clear product line. He ran that.
You can certainly criticize some of the stuff they did, like the Surface Duo, and the product quality was not always great out of the door, but they did fewer things, and they were mainly interesting things, and it's quite different from what Amazon has done. And it'll be interesting to see whether, assuming he does start there, whether they hired him to get some of that approach rather than expecting him to do things the way Amazon usually does them, which is to do a million things and see how it all plays out.
Agreed with Harry. Amazon also just needs new blood in that specific division.
Yeah.
Like, there are useful, interesting things happening there, but it doesn't feel unified. And it feels like at least they have a real shot if they have the resources and they have the distribution. If they had the right person, pushing a new vision with some cutting edge stuff, there's a real shot. You should never count Amazon out of anything. This could go well. We'll see. It needs new blood.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it can't be any worse. Let's put it that way. Unity, I did not much cover this because I knew that Unity would back down. I just didn't see any way around it. Unity, which makes a game engine that is widely used. There's really two big players in this space. There's the Unreal Engine from Epic, which Apple, of course, doesn't use because they hate Epic. So Unity is widely used on the Apple platform. It's used for games on a lot of platforms. They incurred a huge amount of heat from developers when they said, we're going to start charging you a fee for every install. And it's going to be retroactive. And it's going to be 20 cents a user. And it's going to cost you a lot of money. At which point developers said, well, in that case, we're not going to use Unity. And people started looking for Unity alternatives. Of course, it's pretty tough for a game that's already in Unity. You can't really back out of it. And that was part of the big problem was, this is a retroactive fee. This is going to kill us. So Unity has backed down. They apologize. They say the fee will only apply starting next year with the LTS version of Unity, and it'll only be for new games, not existing games. They completely blinked. I think this is probably the inevitable right thing to do. Any thoughts on that, or
don't piss off your developers?
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, that's a good moral. Don't screw with your customers. Couple of big IPOs. I know there were a lot of people who had Instacart who were very, very happy. Instacart went public on Tuesday. Then Clavio. Clavio. What is Clavio?
It's weird. It's hard to say the name.
Yeah.
Clavio is like a huge piece of like email and marketing software that all the e-commerce brands use. It's kind of like
so if you were in the biz, you would know the name.
Yeah. Like if you're in the biz, you know the name. It's been interesting. These IPOs have started happening after like a year of no IPOs. And so everyone's been watching these IPOs pretty closely. Like, are we going to have a bunch of tech companies going for IPO? Is it going to be okay? Kind of the result is like, the IPOs were all right. For companies
by day two, the Instacart went right back down and lost all of their gains. Right. The
problem there are two different stories here, right? Instacart had they were valued in the 30-ish billion range originally by private investors. They went back down in their pricing to 10, which is about where it ended up at, which is not a great win for the later investors who invested late. Fine for the early investors who won, but not great for like if you raise a lot of money like Stripe or others, they might want to wait more. Clavio is unique. They were bootstrapped for much of their time, and then they raised some money. Their last round was about a $9 billion round before they did this. The fact that they went above that number is a little surprising and a really good sign for, I think, the market for if you have a cash efficient business, because Clavio is a profitable business by a little bit, but it's a profitable business and the market rewarded them for that. Now, how it will be long term, I don't know, but they priced above what people thought they would price on their IPO, and then they popped afterwards. So I think there's some kind of trend of like, if you were overpriced before, you get hurt. If you were like really cash efficient and a profitable business, the market's rewarding you.
The company's three founders in Instacart owned 17% of the company before the IPO. So they all are multimillionaires, maybe billionaires after the IPO. So we're going to see more tech industry IPOs.
One crazy thing, since you're talking about the percentage of ownership, the CEO of Clavio, Andrew, owned over 42%, which is like unheard of.
Yeah.
For those for that level. So both the founders are multi-billionaires now. They're going to be more IPOs. They have to. this was at least a decent enough result for more to be like, okay, we should file. I think it'll be a while until you see maybe some bigger ones who have enough money, like a Stripe, if they file. But there can be others where they're like, okay, we're good enough. Let's go and do it. Some don't have a choice either. The gates are going to slowly open up. More companies are going to test. We haven't seen a giant pop, but this is not a horrible result as a starting point.
ARM's going public, right?
ARM
2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
already.
And was that a success? Did they do well?
Same kind of middling answer, I think. Actually, they had a pop, and I think they went down. Like, it's the same kind of middling. Like, it's not a wow. Everything is like roses and candy, and it's also not wow. Everything is burning to the ground.
It's kind of more normal, right? It's not.
It feels like
now.
real market correction has happened, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am glad that ARM did go public, because the reason it did that was that NVIDIA, when all said was done, was not able to acquire them. And I think that from a competitive standpoint, the world is better off with NVIDIA and ARM not being the same company.
Yeah. It's this week in middling, somebody said.
This week in middling.
That's why we don't cover the markets. Let's take a little break. I want to give a plug to some events coming up very soon in our club. Do you know about our club? If you're not a member, I would love to invite you to join. Club TWiT is our way of kind of handling what is happening to podcasts across the board. Advertisers are kind of abandoning podcasting in droves. Not good for us, but we want to keep going. We like what we're doing, and we like the shows, and I hope you do too. And that's why we're turning to our audience for the last couple of years. It's just $7 a month, because you're giving us $7. We don't need to do advertising, so everybody who joins Club TWiT gets ad-free versions of all of our shows. But we thought we could do more. We created a fabulous Discord, which has become a social group for 5,000 or 6,000 of you. Not everybody who joins the club ends up in Discord, but it's a great place to be, to talk to people, smart people, about any subject under the sun. And we've got a lot of different forums in there in the Discord. And of course, you could chat about the existing shows. Plus, we're using the Discord for Club TWiT events. Lou Maresca, the host of This Week in Enterprise Tech, will be joining us Thursday. Aunt Pruitt, our community manager, will interview him for an Ask Me Anything, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Sci-fi author John Scalzi's coming up October 5th. We're going to have some fun at the end of next month for our Halloween adventure. Micah, Jason, Aunt, and I will do an escape room. 3 p.m. October 26th. We'll all be in costume, and we'll be. It's an escape room in a box. So that's going to be. You can watch us act stupid. Stacy's book club continues in the club. Renee Ritchie will be joining us. He's the creator liaison at YouTube, and of course, longtime host of Mac Break Weekly. He'll be doing a fireside chat in November. I'll be doing one with Doc Searles and Jeff Jarvis that they call the Old Farts Chat. I don't know why, but anyway, that'll be interesting. And I mentioned Anthony Nielsen, our AI guru. He's going to do one early next year. More events coming. You also get a TWiT Plus feed of shows that we don't put out in public, like Scott Wilkinson's Home Theater Geeks, Hands on Macintosh with Micah Sargent. These are all shows supported by your donation. There's no advertising. So we do them in the club first. And sometimes they grow big, like This Week in Space, and we put them out in public. Paul Thurrott does Hands on Windows. Jonathan Bennett's Untitled Linux Show. The Giz Fizz with Dick DiBartolo. All those in Club TWiT. That's a lot for $7 a month. Now that I say it, it sounds like an awful lot. Join us. We'd love to have you in the club. twit.tv/Club TWiT if you're not already a member. And I know you're not, because if you were a member, you wouldn't be hearing this. We cut these out too. We don't do those pitches. Hey, it was a great week at TWiT. This was the week that was. Watch.
There was this giant leak of documentation that came up out of the FTC hearings from back in June. We have been a consistent number 2 in gaming. We have a strong franchise. We're making this shift to the cloud where Microsoft has this huge strength. Why don't we buy Nintendo?
I've, talked with Lisa about buying CNN, and I think if it continues to go downhill, maybe we'll have a shot at it. I don't know.
Previously on TWiT. This Week in Enterprise Tech.
We deep dive into Intel's groundbreaking announcements from their annual innovation event.
All this data out there, you got to have a way to process it faster at the edge. And one of the biggest, most prevalent edge devices out there is the PC. In addition to a CPU and a GPU into every PC platform that goes out the door. We're going to add essentially an AI processor in addition to that, and that's called the NPU, or Neural Processing Unit.
This Week in Google.
An expert in disinformation, misinformation, and of course memes, Joan Donovan is in the house.
When you look at audio video manipulation and also these large language models, or, we're dealing with a massive intrusion to what we used to call copyright and copyright laws.
Mac Break Weekly.
I should mention, Apple's also completely overhauled the video camera system, and they've added this whole machine learning layer. So they take in the input from your camera, and then they process it, and then they output it to the whatever app you're using, which leads to that whole thing where if you hold up two thumbs, you get fireworks that happen behind you, or one thumb and you get a big thumbs up thing that pops up, and that's all across all their platforms.
Look, it just did it.
And without any software at all, because it's just happening
Rock and roll.
in the system.
That's really neat.
So
I want my TWiT TV.
Jim Cutler can sing, baby. That's good. We had a great week. I hope you will be with us all next week. I will not be here. We're going on a little vacation. Well, if you could call it a vacation, we're going to Green Bay, Wisconsin. My 20-year-old stepson, for some reasons, Lisa's son, is a Green Bay Packers fan. So for his 21st birthday, we're going to Lambeau Field for Thursday night football. Packers-Lions. Now, that'll be a game, a real rivalry. I can't wait. And we're going to go to the Vince Lombardi Steakhouse, and we're going to go on a Segway tour. We're going to go on the stadium tour, and we're going to do a real Green Bay trip all next week. So I won't be here. Jason Howell and Micah Sargent will be taking over, and I'll be back next Sunday for TWiT. So gone for a week.
Leo, can I just say I'm jealous of that trip, and I'm a diehard Bears fan from a long time, and I'm jealous it'll be a good game because wherever we're walking right now, I'm watching Kansas City, the scoreboard just absolutely thwomp my Bears. And it's a real pain and suffering to be a Bears fan.
But I would hate to be the team the Dolphins beat this week by 70-20. So, it could have been worse. I think the Packers-Lions would be a good
Broncos.
Game. Huh?
It was the Broncos.
Oh, it was the Donkeys? Okay, good. Those poor Broncos. Holy cow.
Those poor donkeys.
It's going to be interesting. Lisa and I kind of retirement dream want to go to see all the NFL stadiums, slowly over a period of years. Lambeau, though, you got to start with Lambeau. What an amazing stadium.
I haven't had a chance to go yet, but when we were at NAB, just driving past outside of Allegiant, I was like, I need to have a reason to come.
Yeah.
This place is beautiful.
Yeah.
And that mobile dome they built in the middle of Vegas is gorgeous.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe when we go to CES.
Go for the Super Bowl. Stay for the Super Bowl.
Oh, yes, CES. Yeah, we got to find a reason to go there just to check it out.
You know where I want to go is the Dome. That MSG Dome. I tried to get tickets to U2's playing this week to open that MSG Dome. But my credit card was refused, so
Life.
I might go to CES just to see the dome.
Yeah.
I have a pitch. Live recording of TWiT in the MSG Dome in Vegas.
Let's do it.
18,000 seats. It cost, I think, $2 billion to build this thing, and they animated it. So it's a big LED screen. In fact, I'm very curious because we are going to the F1 race in November, and I understand they're going to broadcast the race. You know how they do the race broadcast on screens all around the race course. They're going to apparently put it on the sphere, which should
Is it cool on the inside too, or just on the outside?
Yeah, it looks pretty cool on the inside. And by the way, thousands of speakers. So the audio in there is supposed to be pretty spectacular. I'm
so jealous you're going to the F1 race.
I know.
I was looking at, they have a bunch of displays and stuff around town. They had like a real car out inside the Venetian, and that's going to be so epic.
It's going to be so much fun. Yeah. It's a once in a life. It's so expensive. It's a once in a lifetime.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I looked up the cheapest room at the Venetian, and it was something like,
it's crazy. It's thousands. Yeah. Yeah, but we'll be staying there over at the Bellagio, I guess, overlooking the the Strip, and then we have seats on the grandstand there in the at the Bellagio. So that was that's it. That broke the bank. That's why I couldn't go see you too. My credit card said, no, you already did that. You're not gonna go. No,
I'll be stuck in your polar steps.
We saw Joan Donovan on that promo. She taught misinformation, taught about disinformation at Harvard at the JFK school, and was fired. There's been pressure across the board, political pressure against disinformation experts. Our friend Alex Stamos, who runs the Internet Observatory at Stanford. Joan Donovan did find a job at BU. Congratulations to BU for having the chutzpah and the guts to do this. Washington Post this week, misinformation research buckling under GOP legal attacks. It's getting harder and harder for universities to study disinformation. It started with COVID. They didn't like it that the government had gone to Twitter and other social networks, Facebook, saying, you got to take down, please do this for us, take down this COVID misinformation. It's a public health hazard. There was some concern about Russian disinformation during the election. The NIH has frozen a $150 million program intended to advance the communication of medical information, citing regulatory and legal threats. Stanford University officials discussing how they can continue tracking election-related misinformation through their election integrity partnership because of attacks from political operatives in the U.S. government. It seems to me counterproductive. Disinformation, misinformation is not political. It is an attempt to trick people. And why they would want to shut this down, I don't know.
Leo, I think you know the answer, and I know the answer. There is a group of people who do want to trick people, and it is in their best interest to have misinformation spread, and that will only advance with all the new technologies and things coming out. And I sincerely hope more money goes to this research and more people donate to it, and that people are more aware, because it may get worse before it gets better, and it is a real threat to democracy.
Yeah, I'd agree with you 100%.
It's a real threat to human intelligence, period.
And a threat to science. Mm-hmm. Because scientists are scared to do research because it might have political impact. It feels like McCarthyism, to be honest. It feels like it's the wrong direction for this country. I don't know what to say about it. Be aware of it. Good article in the Washington Post. Stephen Fry's a little pissed off. Stephen Fry, we love Stephen Fry, the host of QI. You may remember that now in the U.S., the Harry Potter books are narrated by Jim Dale. But if you got them in the U.K., and I kind of have to confess, I managed to score them, both Jim Dale's incredible version, but I also wanted to hear Stephen Fry because I love Stephen Fry, and he does such a good job. So he narrated all the UK audiobooks of the Harry Potter series. That's hundreds of hours of Stephen Fry's voice. Apparently, people have used AI to learn his voice and narrate a documentary that sounds just like Stephen Fry did it. He says he played a clip of an AI system mimicking his voice for a historical documentary. I said not one word of that, Stephen Fry said. It was a machine. They used my reading of the 7 volumes of the Harry Potter books, and from that data set, an AI of my voice was created, and it made that new narration. He said it could therefore have me read anything from a call to storm Parliament to hard porn, all without my knowledge and without my permission.
It seems pretty straightforward that should be illegal.
Yeah. He didn't say he was going to pursue it legally. I don't know what his remedy would be.
There's no avenue to pursue it legally right now. There needs to, I agree with Harry. There needs to be. It is a real problem. Like, I already met someone who they imitated their grandkid to make a phone call about being in jail.
Yeah.
I can literally right now make an AI voice of anyone, as long as I have about 45 seconds of vocals from them. And that's all you need. You just you literally go to 11 Labs, you upload and it's done. It's scary good how much this technology is advanced, but also scary what that technology can be used for in the hands of bad agents.
If Stephen Fry wants to take money to let people do that, that's fine. So there are conceivably some acceptable uses, but doing it without that person's permission, no.
You own your image, I don't know if you can own your voice. I guess you can. I mean, that would seem to be a part of his persona.
But how would you even track some of them down? Some of the people are impossible to track down, or in different countries. It's part of the complex issues related to AI society.
And what do you do? What do you do if they take Stephen Fry's voice and then tweak it by 30%?
Make it a female Stephen Fry. Yeah, right.
Have you ever listened to one of these things and not been able to tell that it's not AI?
It's getting a lot closer lately.
Yeah.
Okay, so I listen to him, I can tell. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy, but I can tell. But then that being said, if Frank Caliendo was my friend, I would be doing all kind of.
He's the great impersonator. Yeah,
he's literally one of the best.
He's so good.
So in a way, it's always existed, but you can be more prolific with it now because of the AI. But like with Frank, it's hard to tell. But for the most of the AI stuff that I've heard so far, I've been able to tell. And the ones that I've been listening to, which are just hilarious, is like, Snoop reading nursery rhymes or like, they generating songs whole cloth. And there's a certain thing about a swing in a person's voice, right? Think of it as quantization that the AI can't pull off. And so even when I heard the fake Drake, like I knew it was fake Drake because it's missing the mistakes. It was too perfect, and Drake is not that rhythmic. So, like, it was easy to tell. So I don't know. Like, to me, I'd hear a better one, I guess.
That's just for now, though. Like,
100%.
There are these companies that have raised a lot of money, and this technology advanced at the same rate as the large language models. And the last year in particular, they become really, really good. And in limited cases, it's really hard to tell. For sure, there's some where you can tell just a hair, but the more they're trained, the better they get. And in certain situations where you're panicked, someone's calling you, there's there's a jail thing, it sounds mildly plausible, you're not going to know the difference. And look, you have super hearing, whatever Superman put into your ears. Most people probably don't have that superpower. I always remind people, AI is at the worst it will ever be in human history. It will only get better and scarier and more sounding human.
Actually, what makes it scary, I think, is that people aren't going to care.
Benito.
People aren't going to care.
Yeah.
There's auto-tune on every song on the radio now.
Right.
Every single track is auto-tune.
Everything's fake.
Nobody
now.
cares.
Yeah.
So, you think anybody's going to care about this?
Here's one of the YouTube channels that does this so well. They're the ones who did the Barbie Girl by Johnny Cash. Here is Hank. This is called, the channel's There I Ruined It. Hank Williams singing Straight Outta Compton.
Straight outta Compton, crazy mother named Ice Cube. From the gang called Fellers with Attitudes. When I'm called off, I got a sold off. Squeeze the trigger and bodies are hauled off. Now
that's how, you can't tell me that you would know that that's not Hank Williams. That sounds just like him.
It does sound just like I didn't listen to enough.
That's so good.
Myself an expert, but that was good.
Yeah,
I did that one. I forgot I heard that one.
Yeah,
that
there's some.
But it's good enough that you don't care if it's AI, right?
Well, you might care if you were Hank Williams or.
I'm talking about the audience.
Yeah, the audience is
who's going to pay for this stuff.
Yeah. Here's Snoop Dogg's reaction to.
2 in the morning and the party's still jumping cause my mama ain't home. I got in the living room getting it on and they ain't
That's the Jungle Book, Baloo singing Gin and Juice. So
that one doesn't sound at all like Snoop, but it was good.
No, it was supposed to be, I think, Baloo. It actually wasn't one of his better ones. But Snoop's reaction was hysterical.
Yeah, that reaction was hilarious.
Yeah, there I ruined it. Yeah.
These things.
Highly recommend it. This is a good use of AI. This one I can get behind. John Grisham, the novelist, George R.R. Martin, the creator of Game of Thrones, Jodi Picoult suing OpenAI for systematic theft on a mass scale, joining Sarah Silverman, Jonathan Franzen, David Baldacci, and others. A lot of authors very unhappy about OpenAI being able to synopsize their books or write in their style. I don't think they're going to win this case, to be honest.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Even if they did win, the cat's out of the bag, the genie's out of the bottle, Pandora's box has been opened. Once you have like an open source large language model out there, we have a bunch now. You can't you can't take it back. Someone else is going to add stuff to it. I get why they're doing it. And OpenAI is taking all the arrows, as we've talked about, and everyone else won't take the arrows. Yeah, it probably won't win. Even if it does, it just doesn't stop this.
Would you let...
That he looks like George R.
George R. Would you let Elon Musk's robot perform brain surgery on you to insert a chip in your brain? Because he's looking for volunteers. Neuralink, which got FDA approval, is now entering clinical trials. Now, in his defense, they're looking for people with spinal cord injuries, quadriplegics, paraplegics, and others. I don't care. I still would not let a robot implant this device in my brain. On the other hand, if you want to, go to X, or Neuralink, and read all about it.
Neuralink at all, but if I could get a chip to fix my mom's dementia, I'm paying. I would do it. That.
Yeah, and I think that's perhaps the point. Is if you've already lost the use of your limbs, maybe you'd be willing to do something like this if it had even the faint promise that you might be able to get him back. If it weren't Elon, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, Elon just complicates the equation.
Yeah.
But so there people are. Yeah, if you're in that situation, if I was in that situation, probably would try most anything.
Yeah. But you're right. I think at some point we're going to get there's already implants you can do to correct Parkinson's. And in fact, I have a friend with Parkinson's. He has this. It's implanted in his brain, and in his phone is the software that he can put on his head and turn it off. And he turned it off for me, and the shaking, very distinctive shaking from Parkinson's came back. He put it back on his head, turned it on, and it's imperceptible. So you really can do some amazing things. So,
and quick shameless plug: the reason why my studio is purple is because of ALZ.org. So,
right on.
Alzheimer's is a freaking pain in the butt, and I went through one parent on both sides of the family, and they're both still alive and kicking. But trust me, the amount of work and stuff that we have to put in as caregivers, the actual caregivers put in as caregivers, it's a very tough thing. And out of every 3 people 2 of them are probably dealing with someone with either dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that. Yeah. So
we put one of the reasons I went back east a couple of weeks ago is to put my mom in assisted living, and the place we chose has memory care because she is early stages of Alzheimer's. Most of the time she's normal. Every once in a while she says something strange like, "Oh, you should get married and have children." I said, that ship sailed, Mom.
That's the one. That's the one.
That was a while ago. But so it's an interesting experience. It's really at the beginning. So I'm with you. And I support Alzheimer's. We do the Alzheimer's walk every year and all that. I think this would be a good time to wrap things up. What do you say? What do you say, boys?
I didn't mean to bring it.
You brought me down. No, that's a positive. That's a positive. And I didn't know that's why you were purple. You've been purple forever.
100%.
Yeah.
I will leave it at, I feel like we have now learned that cyborgs exist and you can tap a brain and you can reduce Parkinson's symptoms. And that's freaking incredible. And that kind of thing is going to continue. And that will be great for a lot of people who have had lots of issues, lots of problems that couldn't be solved. I love science. This is why I love technology.
Yeah.
And to bring it around to AI again, I think there's lots of reason for optimism that AI will help with some of these intractable problems with human health, particularly relating to what happens to almost all of us if we're lucky enough to live to a ripe old age.
Right. That's right. I agree 100%. And I think the Alzheimer's walk is coming up find out more at alz.org. I'm 100% with you on this one, Doc. Doc Rock, plug things. Yes. Tell us all about it.
Right now, I'm just, as you know, working with the Ecamm thing. We just dropped a new release and doing a lot on my channel and stuff is just trying to get people to start, telling their story, because I believe everybody has a story to tell. Our generation, we grew up with speaking till spoken to, like nobody wants to hear from you kind of thing. And that could be further from the truth. So, yeah, I'm just, for everybody that's out there, like if you have something you want to get into or a story you want to tell, please look. It's all out there and someone wants to hear from you, believe it or not.
Look at you 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Look at that.
When I see that, I was like, wow, that was one of my best videos. And
I love that.
The story behind how that video got so popular is actually hilarious. There was an artist who was doing
me, Doc.
Go ahead.
His hard drive on his Mac ate it, and he was panicking. He has his crew going out trying to buy new computers, whatever. And somebody in his crew saw my video. They replaced the hard drive, and they were able to do their show. It was at like some big venue in New York. And that musician went and told everybody, "Hey, I saw this guy. If you got a problem with your Mac, go check him out."
Oh, wow.
Exploded, and that sort of started.
683,000 views later. Look at you, young man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Doc Rock, I love you. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being so kind to my crew out there in Denver, and I look forward to visiting you in the Aloha State very soon. Wow. It's always a pleasure. Aloha. Mr. Harry McCracken, sorry you didn't come up here. I know you got busy. Next time?
Next time would be great.
Love to see you and Marie. I know you'd like to come up to Petaluma and experience the thrills of big city living.
But it was a nice day today, too.
Good, yeah. It was beautiful. Fast Company's the place to catch them. Cover story this week. Interview with Satya Nadella. He's a global technology editor now on Mastodon.social is Harry McCracken. Anything else you want to plug?
I have a newsletter that comes out on Wednesdays called Plugged In, which you can subscribe to at fastcompany.com. And I think I will write more about Microsoft and their news from their event next week.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Easy. It's free. You subscribe. Plugged In. Fast Company's weekly tech report with the Technologizer. Thank you, Harry. Great to see you. Give my love
Thanks,
to
Liam.
Marie as well.
Always fun.
Always a pleasure.
Totally.
And, of course, Mr. Parr, my good friend Ben Parr, the AI analyst. Thank you for indulging us on this AI conversation. It's nice to get an expert in here and get some expert point of view. I always like to challenge people like you. The place to go, benparr.com. You're at Ben Parr on every possible platform. Anything else you want to plug?
I mean, look, I'm going to have some big stories and big announcements in the coming months. So just go to subscribe to benparr.com or pick your social network. I will post on literally everything. I got some stuff cooking. I will leave it at that.
And here is a lovely picture of you and the soon-to-be Mrs. Parr. The engagement. Beautiful pictures on there on the blog, benparr.com. And subscribe right there, see? Get more AI content in your inbox. While you're looking at these pictures, just give me your email address. That's all I ask. Hey, it's great to see you, all three of you. Thank you for joining us. Thanks. I wish I could see you, but I'm glad you're listening, dear friend. Thank you for listening to This Week in Tech for this week. We do this show, of course, every Sunday, 2 to 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern. That's 2100 UTC. You can join us live if you'd like to get the freshest version of the show. Watch us do it live. Live.twit.tv is the live audio and video streams. If you are watching live, chat live. Our IRC is irc.twit.tv. I hear birds. I must be Doc Rock. Must be Aloha Hawaiian birds singing. If you are not a member of Club Twit, twit.tv/clubtwit. To get copies of this show, twit.tv after the fact. You can get them there on the website for all of our shows. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel, This Week in Tech. Probably the best thing to do, though, get a podcast player and subscribe to the audio or video feed. That way you'll get it automatically as soon as it is finished. and it is finished again, as I've been saying for the last 18 years. We'll see you next time. Another TWiT is in the can. Bye-bye.